Good afternoon. In this video, we're going to go over this week's options watch list. Before I get into the video, if you're not in the room, you can find the link in the description of the video and in the bio section of social media. Also, please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Now, before I start pulling up the tickers, we have a couple things on the economic calendar that we need to look at. One is Powell is speaking at 1:30 p.m. Tuesday Eastern Standard Time. Let's see what he's speaking about. It just says due to speak at an online town hall event. So, but anytime he speaks, this could be a market mover. So be aware of that. Tuesday 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And on Wednesday we have FOMC, but it's not the big one that we normally get. We usually get a FOMC at 2 o'clock. Then we usually get a press conference at 2:30. This one does not have a press conference. It's just a 2 o'clock one. There's no press conference, so I don't imagine it's going to be that much of a mover. But if there is like something that comes out in the statement with the minutes that says something about inflation or anything or tapering, that could get the markets moving. But there is no press conference, so remember that. It's not going to be like the last FOMC, so I don't think it's going to move too much, but we'll have to see what happens. That's why you're going to need to be in the room. Okay, so one of the tickers I have, I'll start with the bearish side. I have only a few because the market's getting really overextended. It just keeps grinding up, so we'll just have to play it day by day and evaluate things pre-market like I've been doing for the last few weeks. That's why you need to be in the room, because things change overnight just because of the gap ups, news, and other things that do happen. So you need to be in the room for that. JP Morgan is one of them. You can see like there's a head and shoulders right here on the daily and the weekly. You get the left shoulder, the head, and you get a right shoulder forming. You can see it right here on the weekly, left head, right shoulder forming. It's not a done deal. I mean, it could keep going up to 170. So just don't start jumping in right now. But just be aware that it's forming. And I would watch underneath the, let's say 159. 159 for push to 156. Then you get this gap fill right here, the 154, 152. Then you got this 150 area, which will be a big psychological number. Then you got support down here at the 145 area. So I would imagine it's probably going to hold the 150, but never know. We'll have to see what happens with JP Morgan. So that's one I would definitely keep an eye on. Target is one I've been keeping an eye on for a long time. It's been like so other ones in the past where I've looked at like Nvidia and ROKU and Baidu, and I've just been on it like weeks in advance, and then it finally has this big massive dump. So I'm just keep looking at this. RCT trend line is way down here at the 210 area, and it's at 260. So we could see a significant drop on Target. So and Target has earnings on the 17th, Tuesday pre-market, so that might be the mover right there. So we'll have to see what happens with earnings. So I would watch it underneath 259 for a push to 249, 250. We'll also just round up to 250. You get this area in the 244, 240 area. Then you get this area right here in the 230, and another area right here in the 220. Mostly 228, 226. So then you got 220 a little bit, 215, 216. So we'll have to see if it will come down that far. Well, like I said, there's earnings. So last time I had earnings, it did drop a little bit. This candle was the high is 193 and the low is 166. So it could be very volatile just because of earnings. So that could be the one, that could be the catalyst to get it to drop. Disney, I know Disney had earnings. It just sold off completely. Well, almost completely. Had a big sell-off on Friday. Get a gap to close down here at the 179 area, 180 area. So I'm looking to close the gap, even possibly come down and test this 170 area of it. And we still have the head and shoulders still on the weekly, left head, right shoulder, it's still there. And it's riding the RCT trend line right up right there. So it's possible we could see 170. So I would watch underneath Friday's low. You could say 181 for a push to 180, fill the gap. Then you get this 175 area. Well, actually, we'll say 178, then 175, then 172, 170. So we'll have to see what happens on that. So Disney could be one that could have a nice move. BA is another one. I know that VA is starting to take off, and it started to pull back on Thursday and Friday, and we'll have to see if it continues to pull back. So I would watch it underneath. Let's see. Whoops, I was on the wrong chart. We'll say 233 for a push to 230. And you get 225 right here. If it does manage to get below that, you get 220. 215. Basically every $5 is an area of resistance on the daily. So I don't imagine it's going to go on to 200, but I would imagine it would try to bounce at 225, 220, probably more or less 220. It could try to find support, but the RCT trend line on the weekly is down at the 169, 170 area. I don't imagine it's going to get that low, but you never know. So BA, definitely watch that one. Now on the bullish side, Visa is one I'd watch. It's at the bottom of the Keltner channel, and you got support right here, the 232, 230 area. I would watch for it to get over, I'd say 234 for push to 230, 235. You get a little bit of resistance right here. Actually, a lot of resistance on the hourly. Then you got 236, 238. 240, 242. If it does get over 242, it's probably going to end up ripping up to 250 plus. So I would watch Visa for a reversal. Roku's been getting beat down. Now I was calling, like I was saying earlier about Target, Roku, I was calling this, weeks in advance. I think I was calling it back here, and it kept going, and it finally did dump. So I'm sure I got a lot of grief saying there's no way Roku is going to come back down to the 300 area, and guess what? It did. So now it's back down on the RC3 10 line. On the weekly, it could go lower, but yeah, it could go back down to 300. So I'm not saying it could bounce yet. It still can go lower, but I would watch for a reversal. I'd watch it over go over Friday's high of 365 for a push to 370, 380, and you got 400. 400 would be a big psychological number. Then you get this 409, 410 area to 420 will close the gap. That'd be a pretty significant area too. But like I said, Roku could go down to 325 or even 300. So it might not be ready yet. So I'll be watching it though. Pins I've been watching for the last couple weeks. It cannot get out of its way yet. The weekly it's still holding in the 55 area, 56 area. So it does manage to get over Friday's high. We'll say over 57 for push to 58, 60. You get this 60, 61 area, 60 area. It's got a lot of resistance right here. So it's gap resistance. So if it does manage to break that, it could end up closing the gap. Now, if I had to guess, what would end up happening is that it's probably going to go up to 60-50 to gap resistance and reject it and pull back and make an inverted head and shoulders. As you can see, get the left, and this could possibly be the head right here, and could make a right shoulder right in here, over here a little more, then end up ripping. So that's what I'm assuming. Gonna predict what's going to happen is that it's going to get up here, stall out, reject a little bit, probably pull back to the 58, then steam through the resistance and close the gap. So pins, definitely watch. SPLK, I've been kind of watching this. I looked at it on options the other day, and there's just not that much volume. So people that want to take the common shares, or they want to play the low volume, they can. You get the inverted head and shoulders, the left, the head, the right shoulder. It gets over 149, 150. It's definitely could make a strong run to 180. You get a little bit of resistance, get a gap right here, 160, 170, 180. So then you get the big psychological number 200. But usually when SPLK gets any momentum, any strong momentum, you end up seeing a massive pop like this. So we could end up seeing a move like this right here. I could easily send it to $200 plus. So have to see what happens with that. UPS. I know I got a couple tickers on here I just don't normally talk about, but UPS it looks like it could end up taking a run right here if we can get over the 195 area for push to 197, 198, which is gap resistance. UPS is one of those stocks where it might not even reject. It may just close the gap up to 210. So I would definitely watch that for UPS to make a recovery on that. So it could also go down lower because the RCT trend line is down here at the 182 area, which would be right here, could fill the gap. So it's possible that I could reject this, or it might not even get over Friday's high and drop and close the gap. So I would be interested if it did jump down to 180. So there is a gap there too. So you got to be aware that UPS has it did find support at the gap support right here. Then you get gap resistance. So you get big gaps on both sides of UPS. So be aware which side you're on, that there's gaps on both sides. They're pretty significant gaps. So one of the gaps can end up closing in the next couple weeks. So keep that in mind. So that's going to do it for the watch list. Keeping it simple. Don't really see too much happening with except FOMC and Powell speaking. Hopefully it won't be a choppy, crappy week like last week. Last week was so choppy, ridiculous. Hopefully this week will be more volatile. So speaking of volatile, I mean, VIX is getting to a point where it's getting very, very low. And when it gets that low, it just ends up popping. So last time it got down below 15, it popped a few days later, actually a couple weeks later, actually next week. So we could end up popping here. I don't know. We'll have to see. I think within the next week or two, VIX should start, volatility should start picking up. So maybe with the events that's happening in Afghanistan, we'll get things moving, but we'll have to see what happens. So that's going to do it. Thanks for watching.